Okay, time to get the trailing arms back on the car. Hardware is nice and clean. These two are the trailing arm to shock bolts. These two mount the trailing arm to the body at the very front of the trailing arm, just behind the torsion bar tube. These four hold the trailing arm to the end of the spring plate. And then these weirdo eccentric bolts are a mount between the spring plate and the arm. I think they control camber and toe, but I could be wrong. But they only go into specific holes, so we'll figure out the alignment settings later. But yep, time to go back on the car. Okay, right hand trailing arm. Hopefully you can see most of what's happening from that angle. I'm just gonna try to suspend this thing up in the air as much as I can. There's a lot going on here. We're trying to insert the arm into the front mount. Change of plans. If you had OE bushings, this probably wouldn't be happening. But this steel liner is a bit too long for my application. So I'm gonna file it down ever so slightly just to get it a little narrower and then put it back in so it doesn't fight me. Okay, take two. Took this bushing and filed it down about 1 millimeter. So it should be a little narrower. Let's see if it will cooperate and fit where it's supposed to. Let's see here. Oh yeah, way easier now. No hammering or bashing or anything. Get in the hole. There we go. That fought me way too much. Okay, this is supposed to go around here. But for now, let's hang it from the shock mount because I don't want to die. Where's my anti-seize? Guess I'll put some on this nut, even though it doesn't really need it. Hopefully it doesn't get everywhere and I end up with a copper colored face. Let's see if we can spin it on. Can I even get my hand in there? Get in here upside down. Thank goodness, please thread on. Oh yeah, buddy. This is on. Do I remember, which tools to use to tighten it on? The wrench. 7/8 wrench on the inside. There's not a ton of room in here to hold this thing, but I have some room. And righty tighty. Let's see how tight I can get this thing. Okay. Yeah, there's not a lot of room in here to hold either the head of the bolt or the nut. But it seems to be working. Okay. Let's torque it to spec. I don't remember what the torque spec was supposed to be. 72 foot-pounds. This is what we want. There we go. Let's grab the nut. Grab the nut, keep it from turning. Boy, a few degrees at a time, huh? Oh, come on. Oh, finally. 3/8 inch drive torque wrench with a 3/8 inch 22 millimeter socket. Little kind of shorty on the outside of the bolt head while holding the nut steady, kind of bracing against the gearbox with a 7/8 box end wrench. Okay, with the front of the trailing arm now torqued, let me see if I can take this and bolt it to this. It looks like I need to probably undo the shock first, but let's do that. And now I believe these go from the outside like this. Like that. These have some very, very tired snore washers, the little lock washers with the teeth on them to prevent the nuts and bolts from backing out. But for now I'm going to put them on, and then I ordered some new ones that should come in here shortly. But they look like this. These little guys with the little teeth on them. These are not good anymore. For now, let's mock them up and pop the new ones in later. Let's see if we can. Okay. $19mm. I'm just gonna snug these up. 19. Wrong way. Man, I don't even know if these adjusters will fit. But trying a bit. Let me just get these things bolted up. I don't know why there's a space between these two, but I'll hold this fit. Tight. Come on. Wrong way. Come on. Tighten up. Okay. All right. Now, these big old adjuster things. Boy, doing alignments is going to be fun. This is a big hole, this is the little hole. So the little hole, this little guy goes in the little hole, I think. That's right. Okay, yeah, things are happening. Okay, cool. This one goes here. Okay, so I'm not sure exactly why, but there's a bit of a gap between the spring plate and the trailing arm. In order to get things to bolt up correctly, I'm going to stick a C-clamp here so I can bolt the two adjusters And this is the way the adjusters go. The big one goes in the back. And the little one, this little guy, goes in this big old slot here in the front through this forward hole. Like that. Okay, let's put a big old C-clamp on here, at least to get the rear bolt started or locked down, and maybe that'll help me lock down the front one. At least doesn't screw up the plating. Okay, here we go. And now, big washer. I think this goes like this. Now if I take this off, I should be able to bolt on the little guy with its little snore washer, and that's it. Okay. Then when you're doing the alignment, then you adjust all these to get the suspension to go whatever direction you want and lock down the alignment. But for now, we just want to get things bolted up. So we'll leave that the way it is for now. And now I can I'm gonna leave these snug. I'm not gonna tighten them because, like I said, we gotta do an alignment. So I'm just gonna temporarily give them a little snug to keep things from falling apart. And then when we're doing alignment, then I'll torque everything down. Can I do this blind from the other side? Yep, I guess I can. All right. Close enough. These guys, just give them a little snug down as well. What's happening? What's happening? There. The eccentric bolts. All right. Cool. Last but not least is mounting the shock to the trailing arm. In all honesty, I don't remember it being off by this much. I could be totally wrong though. Maybe I have my initial ride height position not set up correctly, and my ride height is going to be off. But in any case, I'm going to stick a jack under here, pick this up a little bit, and then put the bolt through it. But time to go put on my new shocks, so I won't bolt this up just yet. Or actually, maybe I will. Screw it. Let's just do it. Inboard. Like that, right there. A little more. snug for now. And as usual, we repeat the same operations on the other side. So the plating on these rear brake splash shields, dust brake shields, whatever, is kind of thin, but the parts are pretty solid. So gave them a quick cleanup, and we're gonna paint them with this gold copper-ish colored VHT caliper paint. Should be durable enough to deal with the heat from the brakes as well as the engine that is right next to it as well. So let's see how this stuff works. If you remember from my disassembly videos, I had to destroy one of my parking brake backing plates because one of my wheel bearings got stuck, so I had to end up cutting it up and to get a puller and pull the hub and the bearing out. So I was missing one of these, and they're expensive, but fortunately a Porsche friend came through and got me a pair that he had laying around. So I'm gonna give these a quick restoration. Since I don't have a blasting cabinet or quick access to one, I'm going to take the path of least resistance and goop these up with some paint remover. Hopefully this stuff works. I used to have a can of the old school formula that I think I had it for about 20 years and it ate through the bottom of the can. It was pretty powerful stuff, but I haven't used this in a while, so let's try that. Assuming that works and the paint comes off, then I'll go ahead and dunk them in evaporust to get rid of this surface rust here, and then hopefully I'll have some clean metal that I can give a quick scuff, light scuffing with sandpaper, and then paint these bad boys up the same color as the brake rotor splash shields. A couple of applications of paint remover later, looks like it got most of the bulk of the old paint off, and I've got a couple little spots left to take off. But now let's see if we can remove some of this rust. So we'll let that sit there and let that soak for a little bit. Okay, 24 hours later, let's see if this evaporust did the trick. Well, okay. Yeah, that's not too bad. There's a little bit of paint still stuck on there from the paint remover not quite doing its job, but man, that looks like bare metal to me. How about this other one? I think this one had worse corrosion on it. This one's got a couple tiny spots, but generally pretty good. I mean, way better than it was before. Cool. Looks like this took care of 90% of the work, and I'll just, guess I could, oh wow, this is even like, just wipes off with the fingers. Yeah, very cool. I guess the rest of it I can just take care of with a little bit of sanding, which I'll have to do anyway to prep for paint. But yeah, very cool. Shoot, as long as this can of rust remover is out, pop these bad boys in one by one. Can I fit this one in there too? I don't know if I can. there's no room. Oh well, one at a time. It's fine. Before, after. Let's take a look. Look at that, nice and clean. What is this black stuff on here? Looks like this will wash off, but the rest is gone. Sweet. Great news. Light sanding, and these things are ready to paint. Painted just in time before sunset. Should be good enough for another few years. Okay, so now that the copper colored parts are fresh out of the oven, they've been baked at the temperature that the instructions indicate on the can. I believe it's 200 degrees for an hour. Yeah, that didn't have any issues, and I was nice to see that no strange odors or chemicals were released into the atmosphere. So yeah, in case you want to bake these in your own kitchen oven. Anyway, yeah, so these are all ready. These are done. These have been done. I painted these bearing retainer thingamajigs in an old can of roll bar satin black chassis paint. This can is like 10 years old, which is probably why the color looks kind of weird, but whatever. These things are literally, these go on the hub, and then these go on and they bolt into the trailing arm to hold the bearing in, and then you build the entire parking brake assembly out here. So I needed to finish these before beginning the hub reassembly process. So now that this is all done, we can begin putting parts on the rear trailing arms and rebuilding the hubs. Additionally, I bought a brand new set of parking brake hardware. I have the pads or the brake shoes somewhere else, but I have those as well. And the reason why I'm replacing them is because all of mine are original, and even though they still function, they have zero plating on them. And I would rather put these back together with fresh plating and not have to worry about them for another decade or two or something. Furthermore, these hubs are also ready to install. I did a quick test fit on the car. I have to pop these into the hubs, or rather I have to pop these onto the trailing arm already installed on the car, so I'll have to use my press tool or smack them into position. But as a quick double check, I grabbed my axles and made sure that the splines attach onto these splines, and they do so with no issue. I gave that a quick scrub with a wire brush so that there's no garbage in there that could potentially hold prevent them from assembling, and those are a nice slip fit, no issues. Also, on the bearings installed on the trailing arm, I noticed that one of these slips in quite nicely. This one, it self-centers pretty nicely in there, and I pulled it back out because these have to go on there. But I did notice that, remember how one of them gave me a ton of trouble pulling it out because it had rusted to the inner bearing race? Well, I gave these a quick a quick polish, hand polish with some green Scotch-Brite, just to remove any little bits of garbage that could prevent me from installing them easily. And this one polished up quite nicely. There's no proud spots or sharp edges or anything that could hang. This one, even though it polished up quite nicely, I hope you can see it in the camera. This one has, you can see that it has a bunch of porosity on the surface. I really hope you can see that. But anyway, this top half has a bunch of little pores in the metal, which I think is where it had rusted itself to the bearing. And yeah, that's what was giving me all that trouble. So in addition to polishing with hand polishing here with a green Scotch-Brite, I took them over to my bench grinder with a little Scotch-Brite abrasive type of a wheel here to polish these as best as I can. And yeah, that's all we can do. I'm probably gonna reassemble these with anti-seize or something smeared on here, so that hopefully prevents corrosion in the future. But I mean, it is possible that this individual hub could give me trouble, you know, a few years down the line when I have to replace the bearings again. But now that I know what to look for, and that I have all the right tools like the slide hammer and the press and everything, hopefully it'll give me less trouble the next time that I have to service it. But to summarize, I cleaned everything as best that I could so that hopefully these will pop right onto the bearings with no issue. I'm going to grab my bearing removal tool and see if I can reconfigure it so that I can pull these onto the bearings in car position. And I'm going to take these and put them in the freezer for a few hours and see if that helps me at all. I don't expect the freezing to help very much because these parts are steel, and the bearings, the bearing races are also steel, and I don't really want to heat those up and cook the grease that's in them or cause any issues. So whatever, if I can shrink this down a teeny weeny amount, then you know, I'll take any help that I can get. But enough rambling, let's pop these guys in the freezer and get back to reassembling all this good stuff back on the trailing arms. Okay, time to reinstall these onto the trailing arm before popping in the hubs. Remember, you got to do this beforehand. This essentially does two things. This is like the dust shield for the parking brakes, and also is part of the retaining plate set that holds the bearing in place. The back side has a smaller through hole, so the bearing can't go out that way. What you do is you take these, and this parking brake hole goes over here on this side towards the front. Can't believe I spent so much time painting parts that no one's ever gonna see, but at least they won't rust. Then you take this backing plate. You can see mine's messed up from where I had to use a puller to pop it out with the bearing. This bearing plate has a slightly larger OD than this flange, so they should fit like this. And now you grab a bunch of M8s. All these were the same size, these M8 13mm head bolts that came off of the hub. So pop these guys back on. They have a lock washer behind them. You're tightening into aluminum, so you don't need to torque them very high. I think it's 18 foot-pounds or 25 Newton meters. Did I get that right? Yes, 18 foot-pounds. Okay, now obviously do the same on the other side, and then we're going to see if we can pop this bearing in. So here are some strategies to consider before you press the hub back into your brand new bearing. If at all possible, it's probably the most reliable or easiest to take the trailing arm off the car and do this entire assembly, including the pressing in and out of the bearing on a press. If you have to do it on the car in this position, then here's kind of the thought process that I will consider. So here's this, remember this tool that I used to press out the bearing earlier on the bench? So I'm going to use this tool to pull the hub back into the inside of the bearing. However, you have to be very careful because this the inner bearing race and the outer bearing race are not held together very tightly. There's a bunch of ball bearings, grease, and a plastic seal in here, and there's a little bit of float you can see as I wiggle it with my finger. So while the entire bearing won't fall out the back of the trailing arm because the hole is smaller than the outer bearing race, you could still accidentally push really hard on this inner bearing race and damage it. Either pop it out that way, spilling all the ball bearings, or just generally damage it and reduce the lifetime of your wheel bearing. So you have to support this inner bearing race from the backside while you're pressing the hub in. And the way I'm going to do that is, fortunately on this tool, it has this tiny plate, which there's a hole on the back that is kind of about the same diameter, but essentially it's going to go like this. It's going to be large enough to support the inner bearing race, so I can put the tool through it and squeeze the hub back on. So here's what it looks like. So here's my inner bearing race, and I've got this plate is big enough to go in here, and it's going to support the inner bearing race. And now I'm going to insert this large bolt from the backside like that. And now I won't, as I press in the hub, through the front side with this bolt and the spacers and that large nut and the ratchet and socket. I'm going to support the race from the back so I don't damage it and push the race back this way towards my hand. And I'll just hold this with another ratchet. So that's the general strategy, at least on paper. Let's see if it actually works. Another thing that I'm trying to do, as I said earlier, is I have the bearings, I have the hubs in the freezer to hopefully shrink the OD of the hub shaft just enough to be advantageous and get slide in here any easier. And to prevent any further corrosion, like I saw on one of the hubs earlier, I'm going to smear some anti-seize in there to hopefully prevent any moisture from getting trapped in there and causing issues down the line. So that's about it. Let's get this going and see if it works. Okay, so we got about halfway in. That's great. Yep, that's in there. Heck yeah, we were successful in installing this one. This is the messed up one too that had the porosity situation on the surface of the hub. So that's great news. The other one should go in relatively easily. But this is the one I was the most worried about. And if this needs to come together, you know, a fraction of a millimeter, then when we do the final torque of the shaft, the axle shafts and the big castle nut here, we'll cinch it down to its final position. So we're all good now. Awesome. So this parking brake hardware kit comes from Dansk, D-A-N-S-K. And there's a part number for your reference. I think I got this kit from Auto House AZ, but I'm sure any of the typical European suppliers, European auto parts suppliers will have it. And these are just generic parking brake shoes from Rock Auto. I mean, they're just parking brakes. They don't need to be anything special. And it's going to replace, all of this is going to replace all my little bits that, again, were functioning well. Just, I want shiny ones in there, just like the rest of the assembly. So let's go. Okay, so first thing we want to do is I'm going to do it in this way, because in this order, because this is what helps me. First I'm going to put the shoes on. Once I hang those, then I'll put on the dust shield for the rotor, and then I'll put on all the rest of the bits. But what you want to do is you want to take a pair of these guys. One side has notches, the other side has these little round posts. You want the notches facing the back of the car, posts on the front. And what you do is you take these little guys in your hardware kit, insert them from the back, and like that, and you should be able to put on this spring with this cone-shaped spring with the narrow side against the shoe, the large side up, and then you secure the spring in place with this little spring retainer that is like shaped like a cup, and you want the cup side, dish side facing out, so it goes in there like that. However, sometimes these springs can be a little bit of a pain to install. These are particularly strong. I don't know why they're so stiff. I don't think my old ones were that stiff, but because I don't want to fight them, I'm going to use some zip ties to hopefully make this job a little easier. Got some itty bitty zip ties, And I should be able to compress this spring all the way down by hand with the little ratcheting thing facing outward, so you can cut it off later. Okay, this is quite a bit shorter than the original one. I think that should be enough. Let's try it out. So I want to not fight the spring there, and take the little cup washer, you put it on, it's slotted, and then you turn it 90 degrees, and there's like some notches that will hold it in place, and that's how you want it to stay. But now you got to release the zip ties, so I would hold on to I would put tension on the whole assembly, holding the spring, the cupped washer, and the rod in place so that nothing goes in any other direction. And undo the zip ties. And now this is stuck in place. There we go. There. That's what you want it to look like. Now I'm gonna do the same on the bottom. Okay, I think this should be enough. Let's do the bottom one. I already got my little rod in here. Put this in here. Put this in with the small side facing inward. Okay, yeah, that's good enough. Pop this guy in, turn it 90 degrees so it catches in the notch. There we go. Didn't even have to fight them. Now I'm going to put on the dust shield, because as you add more stuff here, it's more difficult to put the shield on. Okay, the dust shield is held on with 3 bolts. It goes in with the dished side facing inward, obviously. I think you can put it on like that and kind of work it over. Somehow get it to the other side without scratching it too much. All right. Okay, we want to take a little bolt, put it in from the front. Oh, my gloves are torn. Take another bolt, put it in from the front. Take a wavy washer and a hex nut. Secure those from the back side. Same thing on the bottom. And then this guy is a shorter bolt, and with the wavy washer it goes through the back of the plate into this captive nut. I can get it on there any day now. Torque is pretty low. It's just like the the bolts on the retaining plate for the bearing. It's 18 foot-pounds or 25 Newton meters. Okay. These little springs, little return springs, go on here to pull the shoes off the brake rotor when they're not being used. This big one goes on the front under the adjuster, and this little guy goes back here. So let me see if I can get this guy on here. Oop. Okay, well. Push on the end. There. This one goes on. On this side, the adjuster goes like that. On the other side of the car, the left side, you flip it up the other way. But here we're going to install it like this. Just to let things slide around and not seize and all that good stuff, we're going to put some anti-seize on this surface so that it slides around inside the cup very nicely. Maybe it's too much. But now we want to get this guy on somehow. Oh yeah, now we're fighting some springs. Might need to get a pry bar. Maybe I should have put the spring on afterwards. You want to collapse this in the smallest position possible. This thread's out, so get it as small as possible. And let's see how we can get this thing to cooperate. There we go. Let's go. All back into place. There we go. There we go. All right. I just pry between here and the bottom of the shoe. All right. That's good. Now we go to the other side, put the spring in, and figure out how to get things to line up with the spreaders, the actuators. Okay, after much trial and error, here's my order of operations so far, I think. So first of all, hang the shoes, hang each shoe from its little post and spring and cup washer, top and bottom. Then, when you're done with that, you can hang this spring in the back relatively easily without the adjuster in place. Once you have that in place, you can get a big flathead and lever the pad up or shoe so that you can have enough room to put the adjuster in here in its shortest state. Once you get it in there, you can turn the adjuster to expand it as much as possible to get these sides to draw closer as much as possible, and then that will help you in attaching this spring over here, this bad boy, which is a giant pain. But I was able to hang it from the top, route it down here with nothing in the way, none of this adjuster with none of these little bits. Then I was able to come back under here and convince that end to hook in place. And now these are in place. So now what I'm going to do next is come back over here, make the adjuster as short as possible to allow these ends to open up. And then I'm going to go ahead and reinsert these guys in here and do the put the spring in here and put on the castle nut on the end of the cable here. So let's see if that works. Before we get started, learn from my mistakes. It took me a few tries before I got it right, and this is definitely not right. Whatever you do, do not assemble both of the expander things for your parking brake on this same side. First of all, it's going to be very difficult to assemble them this way, and when you do finally get it assembled this way, they are not going to work at all. So don't do this. This inboard one is supposed to go behind behind here and behind the round hole in the backing plate. Now we got to get these bad boys in here. First, you want this cable. Grab your parking brake cable, shove it through the back, pull it out through the front. There's a couple of nuts back here, a nut and a lock nut. So spin them all the way back so that the cable can protrude, the end of the cable can protrude this way towards you as much as possible. Alright, we'll just park this here for now. Okay, we have to put one of these adjusters back here behind this round opening. Not that tricky, but you do have to kind of pry up on the pad, the shoe. I keep saying pad, and get it. You need to put it with this round part facing outboard. So you kind of put it in there. Hopefully it doesn't fall all the way through. What you want is to then take your cable and put it through the back of the hub. Whoa. And get it so that the end of the cable goes through the hole in the center. Kind of wants to fall. You want these this to sit on the round posts on the end of the shoe. So you're trying to do this, but on the other side, on the inboard side. So you can either, I'm trying to grab the cable to see if I can, see if the end of the cable will hold it up. There we go, there. Now the end of the cable, now it's kind of floating in the middle. So now I should be able to, come on, pry it up. Okay, there's one. You got the bottom one in. Now I got to get the top one in. Let's see if I can do that. Is the top one in place? I don't think so. Where is it? Okay, yeah, they kind of fell in place. So we're good now. Let me double check. Yes. So yeah, that's it. Just fish it in through the back in this orientation. Put the cable through the center so it kind of floats and doesn't want to fall up or down. And then you pry the shoes up and try to get this forked end onto the posts like that on the inboard side, top and bottom. Once you got that, got to grab this spring. And that's why this round hole is here in the backing plate. I'm gonna grab the spring, shove it in there. With the round part facing inward so that the end of the spring sits on it. Like that. Okay. Now, let's see if the cable will cooperate. Should be able to take the flat washer, put it over, take the little castle nut, put it on top, and spin it on. Now there's a tiny hole a tiny through hole on the end of the screw, or on the end of the cable rather. Can't really see from this view, but You want the hole to be, wherever the hole ends up, you want the hole to line up with one of the slots on the castle nut, so that you can then take this itty bitty cotter pin, shove it through, like that, all the way through. Ouch. And don't stab me, cotter pin. This cotter pin has really long ends. I'm just gonna wrap them around like that. Call it good. All right, and that's it. Now, once you have your adjuster properly spaced out, when you pull on the cable and the parking brake, you can see how these are pushed outward and will touch the inside of the drum portion of the rotor. That's how it works. When it's parking brake on, parking brake off. And obviously, once you have it adjusted properly, then you know, they'll work the way they're supposed to. For now, that's the way it's gonna go. Now these are nice and flat. I think as a kind of an indication that they're positioned correctly, the shoes are, this outer diameter of the shoe, the curvature of the shoe is following the curvature of the backing plate. So let's grab our rotor and see if it will fit. We grab the rotor and line it up with the two screw holes. So you got screw holes and two. So the two screw holes are here and the two stud holes are here. Let's go like that. Oh, thank goodness. That's exactly what is supposed to happen. Now I need to get my little securing screws in here. I don't know why my little hardware kit only came with 2 shiny screws, but I'll just reuse the old ones on the other side. This guy will go here. And that's it. This is not, there we go. Beautiful. Nice and tight. Rotors are old, but they're still usable. All right. Very excited. But that's it. Parking brakes are good to go.